And we already have come to order, everybody but me, actually. But welcome, and I see we're all here. Commissioner Joby is ill, but he's participating by phone, I believe. Are you there, Ed?
Yes, yes, I'm here.
Okay, great. Appreciate you stepping up to the plate, even though you're home sick. The first agenda item is the adoption of the proposed agenda. Do I hear a motion that we adopt it? And second. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Okay. Second item is to consider the minutes of September 20th, 2012. Do I hear a motion that we adopt those minutes?
So moved.
Second. Mr. Powell, second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir. I know it's been 161 days since September meeting. Is there a way we can get these more quickly? We've all talked about reasonableness here, and I don't want to make a motion and all that, but it's just hard to remember what went on and have to go back to the quarterly notes. It's been 6 months.
Madam Secretary?
We're going to make every effort to speed up the process.
Thank you. That's fine.
Please do. Was a point well taken. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Ayes have it. As far as my report goes, we have a lengthy agenda today, as you know, about, unfortunately, a lot of the time it's taken up with not necessarily making investment decisions, et cetera, et cetera. And our agendas have been getting progressively lengthier. And one way to deal with it is to, anyway, I've refreshed myself on Robert's Rules of Order, and we all, myself included, have been lax about a lot of the things that have been move along more smoothly. I'll be paying more attention to him, and I'd like to appoint Ms. Nancy Shealy is to be the parliamentarian for the commission and make sure that we move hastily and decorously, but at the same time consistent with the rules. And I'm going to carry out to do that. So, first item that I'd like to bring up is to introduce Derry Oliver. Derry, if you would stand up, please. Derry's on our payroll as of, I guess, 12:01 a.m., but anyway, as of today. At this point, he has no title. He's here to observe, and I'm considering this part of our orientation. But Derry, effective tomorrow, will be our Chief Operating Officer, I hope. I know what job he'll have, I hope. His title right now, we'll determine that during the course of the meeting, but I believe it'll be Chief Operating Officer. Derry was hired unanimously by the commission at our last meeting. He brings over 30 years senior finance and operations experiences. He grew up in Pittsburgh, started his career at Price Waterhouse, and then he became Chief Financial Officer and Chief Operating Officer in a privately held, rapidly growing technology, venture capital, and other businesses. After September 11, 2001, he decided he wanted to give back to the community or the country and became a United Way Chief Operating Officer for 5 or 6 years. But for the past 5.5 years, he's been the Chief Financial Officer of Edison Ventures, which is an $800 million group of venture capital funds based in New Jersey. He's an honored graduate of Carnegie Mellon University, and he and his wife Arlene are making their home here in Lexington County, along with 3 Shetland sheepdogs. I used to have an old English sheepdog, so I'm going to ask Derry later what's the difference. He's looking forward to being part of the community. We're looking forward to having him, and welcome Derry.
Thanks, everybody.
All of y'all remember that there's a deadline for filing your Ethics Commission's report. The deadline is April the 15th. You have to do them online, and you have to do them right. I filed mine, and I had to go back and amend it twice because of typographical mistakes that I made. But mine's filed, and it's in there for better or worse. But all of you, please do so because you'll get fined. So please don't do it. before we proceed on to the business, I would be remiss if I didn't mention something about our acting chief executive officer, Adam Jordan. He's going to be that through the end of the meeting today. But I want to mention that, you know, Adam stepped into his role after the loss of a visionary leader, and he had big shoes to fill. He served us with honor and loyalty and dedication. And as the old Chinese curse says, may you live in interesting times, and he served us well through interesting times. I don't have a plaque to present, I don't have a gold watch to honor, because tomorrow Adam will be back among the troops doing investment work. And I'm confident that his intelligence and the pride that he takes in his work will serve us well there, just like he's served us all. Under different circumstances, a long time ago and far away, I learned that whenever there's a void that and a gap that needs filling, no matter how big a gap and no matter how sad the reasons, that there was always an American who would step forward and do his job. And what I'd like to do now is something I was too young and immature to do then, and that's to just say, I just want to stand and say thank you. The next agenda items relates to the accuracy and timeliness of our reports to the public. And I have drafted, and you have among your materials, a motion on that subject. It's a short, simple motion whereby the commission would resolve that we express confidence in the accuracy of the returns data that the commission is published. And then if someone will second my motion, we can discuss that and proceed to deal with it.
Would you read the motion, please?
The commission hereby expresses confidence in the accuracy of the returns data it has published.
I'll second. Where is this?
It's an item, yeah, item Roman numeral 3.
Yeah, but that is the language.
Yeah, item Roman numeral 3. In your motions list?
Yeah, I was asking what page.
Oh, I don't know about the book.
I haven't seen that, I'd like to see it. I'll see it.
Huh? Last page.
What page number?
516 in the red.
I'm sorry?
516 in the red.
5, 6.
Red page 516, and on your handout sheet is item Roman numeral 3. Anybody needs to print it out, it can be done. But there's been a motion and there's a second, and now I'd like to recognize Commissioner Joby, whom I understand has a motion to amend my motion.
Chairman.
Yes.
My voice is going to be shaking here, so I'll try my best. I move a substitute resolution not prepared. I would ask now to pass out, Mr. Chairman. I would ask that pass out, please.
Did somebody have it, pass it out? Laura, you have it, pass it out to each commissioner. First to the commissioners, and then it's all the commissioners have one, so Ed, the rules would require a motion to be read. Can you read it?
I'm not going to just read the first 3 paragraphs and then ask if you all can read it, or if you need somebody to read it for the last 2, but I'm unable to read the entire.
If I might, can we have somebody stand up and read the whole thing? This is the first I've laid eyes on this, and since it's a personal attack, I'd like to have it all read by someone we can understand.
All right, Commissioner Joby, you want to make your state the pertinent parts, and then I'll delegate the reading of it and view, so everybody can hear it and in view your voice situation.
And can we get more copies of this, please?
at an appropriate time, yeah.
I think it's appropriate. I'd like to-
Somebody can be making extra copies as we proceed
Thank
with
you.
this.
Whereas South Carolina State Treasurer is an ex-officio member, voting member of the South Carolina Retirement System Investment Commission, and therefore jumps to fiduciary standards. And whereas South Carolina State Treasurer has chosen to publicly engage and criticize the investment commission, often using data citing factors. And whereas South Carolina State Treasurer often has included his criticisms with charges of dishonesty and fraud as a part of the commission. That's the first three paragraphs. Now just read the last, the last two. Whereas South Carolina State Treasurer also stated on February 19, 2013, that, quote, the local media does talk about this because standing up against the rich and the powerful. The richest and most powerful people and most powerful people in the country. That's the result of the 28th day of February 2013, South Carolina Retirement System Investment Commission. Hereby contends and sentences of South Carolina State Treasurer for engaging in false, misleading, and deceitful rhetoric and be it resolved further. This resolution be entered into efficient for the February 28, 2013 commission meeting.
Okay, but before the motion gets read, by the appointee and entered into the record for potential second, is it your motion that this replace the motion that's previously on the floor in its entirety?
Yes.
Okay. All right, that being the motion, I'm going to now, before it's appropriate for a second, I'm going to designate Nancy Shealy, a parliamentarian, to read this. But I'm going to make it crystal clear that Ms. Shealy is reading this in her capacity as a designated employee of the commission, and it's not to be interpreted under any circumstances now or in the future to mean that she is a proponent of or an opponent to the resolution. I'm directing you, please, to read it for the record. Is it the commission's pleasure that she start over, or may she pick up with paragraph 4? Pick up with paragraph 4.
Whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer said on February 19, 2013 on the radio that, quote, I give my oath that what I have told you is true and factual, end quote, in the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 6, 2012 that, quote, either the elites in Columbia and New York have control, or the people who own the money have control, end quote, from South Carolina Pension Fund Tanking, Fitz News, February 6, 2013. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on July 12, 2012 that, quote, they, parentheses, the commission, in parentheses, continually put out information that is not correct, end quote, parentheses, quotation mark, Loftus gets snippy as Budget and Control Board agrees to hire an attorney, from scnow.com, July 12, 2012, and there's the website citation. Whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on June 12, 2012 that, quote, we have people making decisions that may be unduly influenced by huge sums of money, end quote, parentheses, from the South Carolina pension officials succumb to Wall Street greed, end quote, the Daily Caller, June 12, 2012, and the web citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on May 23, 2012 that, quote, we have people who are attacking that trust fund. We have people who are wanting to spend that money in ways that it shouldn't have been spent, and people who want to open up the doors so it will be less efficient and more people will have their hands into it, end quote. Parentheses, Senator Ronnie Cromer's channel, Curtis Loftus stands with Ronnie Cromer. YouTube video 21, May 23, 2012, and there's the web citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 4th, 2012 that, quote, "they're going to fight transparency and accountability," end quote. Parentheses, State Investment Panel squabbles intensify. The state, February 4th, 2012, website. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on December 29th, 2012 that, quote, "there's this hidden world of the Investment Commission that no one knows anything about," end quote. Parentheses, Treasurer wants to overhaul SC Retirement Board from the Free Times, December 29th, 2012 website. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely says, quote, "the state has a mandate not to exceed 50% in alternative investments," website citation.
Assets,
Alternative assets, citation to website. Whereas false personal attacks by the South Carolina State Treasurer have created a hostile work environment for Commission staff by implying they lack integrity and fail to live up to professional codes of ethics, parentheses, October and November 2012 email messages to the Chief Investment Officer, January 2013 email to the Chief of Staff describing him as, quote, "simply dishonorable," end quote, and letter to the General Counsel claiming an audio file of the November 2011 Commission meeting was altered, in parentheses. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer is, by statute, a fiduciary accountable for prudent investment management in the sole best interest of system participants and beneficiaries, he often demonstrates a false understanding of the scope of his fiduciary obligations by stating, for example, on December 29, 2012, that, quote, "the Investment Commission is unaccountable to the legislature and to the pensioners and the taxpayers of this state," end quote. Parentheses, from Treasurer wants to overhaul SC Retirement Board, Free Times, December 29, 2012, web citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer in January 2013 falsely claimed that a majority of commissioners called for a special meeting of the commission, parentheses, Loftus, Curtis, email message to Reynolds Williams, January 16, 2013, in paren. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer in January 17, 2013 informed an investment partner that their money would be withheld pending said URSENS meeting, parentheses, Loftus, Curtis, email message to commissioners, January 17, 2013, in parentheses. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely issued a notice on commission letterhead for said fictitious meeting, parentheses, Loftus, Curtis, email message to commissioners, January 17, 2013, in paren. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on January 29, 2013, that commission policy benchmarks are set primarily to allow staff to earn compensation bonuses, from South Carolina Treasurer to fix state's public pension plan, Institutional Investors Alpha, January 29, 2013, website citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer now argues, quote, that the policy benchmark is set too low and is used primarily to award bonuses to investment staff, end quote. The fact is that in 2012, the compensation policy for investment employees was discussed in detail and at length in public session. Not only did the Treasurer vote for the current system, he was part of a 3-person compensation committee which worked with a nationally respected consultant that proposed the system using the benchmarks for which the Treasurer voted. Website citation. Whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 18, 2013 that, quote, "the Commission misleads the public at every turn. It is deceitful and should stop," end quote. From Curtis Loftus's Facebook page, access February 18, 2013, website citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013, that the data issued by the Commission were, quote, deceptive, end quote, and that the Commission, quote, lacks a moral core, end quote, from retirement system earned $3 billion in 2012. The state, February 19, 2013, website quotation, website citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer has falsely stated that, quote, the Commission regularly denies me information pertinent to the safekeeping of those funds, end quote, from Curtis Loftus issues statement about fund performance, Fitz News, February 20th, 2013, web citation. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19th, 2013 that, quote, I've tried to work with the Commission over and over and over, but I'm largely ignored, end quote, from In the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013 that, quote, we have a small clique of people who like the Commission as it is and will accept no change. In the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013 that, quote, we had an opportunity to go on oath last during a Senate committee meeting, but no one wanted to do it but me, end quote, from In the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013 that, quote, I probably have 25 or 30 outstanding requests, parentheses for information, end quote, in the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013 that, quote, they claim they're 29% less risky than the average plan, I've asked for, parentheses, the underlying math, end paren, I can't get it, end quote, in the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated February 19, 2013 that, quote, I found where contracts that we voted on that have a certain amount of fee structure are not the contracts that are realized, so we're paying more in fees than we voted on, millions of dollars, end quote, from In the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. And whereas the South Carolina State Treasurer falsely stated on February 19, 2013 that, quote, the local media doesn't talk about it because when you stand up against the Commission, you're standing up against the richest and you're standing up against the rich and the powerful, the richest and most powerful people in this state and the richest and most powerful people in this country, end quote, from In the Pickle Barrel, WJMX, February 19, 2009. Now, therefore, be it resolved this 28th day of February 2013, the South Carolina Retirement System Investment Commission hereby condemns and censures the South Carolina State Treasurer for engaging in false, misleading, and deceitful rhetoric, and be it resolved further this resolution be entered into the Commission minutes for the February 28, 2013 Commission meeting.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second it.
I recognize Mr. Pritchett for discussion.
Well, as most of you know, my background is in academics. And for decades, in academic circles, I've participated in debates of ideals, not of personalities. And this is not a personal attack. I don't think on the treasurer it's an attack on a method of communication. I find the press releases and radio comments unnecessarily negative. I think, in particular, as we all know, our sole obligation as fiduciaries is to participants and beneficiaries of the fire pension plan. And I am confident that many of the pensioners who tend to be low income and probably are not financially sophisticated about capital markets and the variability in markets over time are scared. They probably feel fear because of this negative publicity that I find unnecessary. Part of the problem, as I see it, is that with a defined benefit plan, a portfolio like we have, we need to be focused on the long term, and that doesn't mean we don't have concern about the short term too. But I think we unnecessarily focus on one-year returns, whether they returned at the end of June 30th or whether they returned at the end of December. Just specific dates in particular parts of the market may be up or may be down. Our portfolio is not necessarily the same as some others might be compared to. A real benchmark is a 7.5% return that is the actuarial assumed rate of return. And the latest 3-year returns, well over 8%. So, you know, that suggests we are doing pretty well. If you look at 5-year returns, we're not doing so well. But the focus has got to be on the long term and our mission of maximizing returns at an acceptable level. Consequently, we need to pay attention both to return and to risk. And so, you know, my concern is the participants and the beneficiaries and how they interpret their communication.
My turn?
Chair recognizes Mr. Walker.
It's interesting that we started off by, we have a tremendous amount of information, we want to get through it. And the first thing we do is try to pull off the best ambush in the custom. It would have been nice if, you know, let me have an eye of this came along, and, you know, my agendas aren't allowed, my items aren't allowed on the agendas. I've tried several times to get them. I can't discuss these issues because you don't allow me to. So, I have to communicate the best I know how. I'm not about to try to justify this. And Dr. Pritchard, I'm really surprised that you can say that what I believe and what my personal experience is false. That you can believe the things in here, such as when I say I don't get information on a timely or regular basis. I don't know how you can know that that's false and so much of this stuff.
Mr. Walker, you shouldn't address your remarks to another commission. Please address your remarks to the chair.
That's it.
You too, Mr. Pritchard.
Well, we do appreciate that you have total control of the agenda and the items on it. And as you know, I've tried to discuss that we should meet more often so we don't have such a problem. But let me just say, this is embarrassing to me, obviously. But as I looked around the room, I saw a lot of people involved. There's nobody in here that knows whether most of this is true or false. It could give me a little tip as we talk on the phone, exchanged emails this week, but he didn't. I don't know what to say, other than let your conscience be your guide. We shouldn't waste time. I know that I don't have the support of this commission. I've tried over and over and over. I try to get information. I can't get it. I bring up problems with contracts. Nobody will look at it. We have a chairman under criminal investigation. I can't get anyone to investigate that file, even though there are irregularities all through it. So what I say is true. And I've said them here. Does anybody believe that those things, in fact, maybe that's what I should say, is Adam, do you and Herschel say that I have, that I don't have unfulfilled requests for information?
Again, Mr. Walker.
All right, Mr. Chairman.
You shouldn't address remarks to other people.
Well, not all of us were able to plan this little ambush, so we're maybe a little bit rattled here. But, Mr. Chairman, do you have any idea how many requests for information I have on file?
This is not a question period, but
Well,
the
sure
short
it is.
answer to your question is yes.
Okay, and how many would that be?
That's what I said, we're not getting into that.
You've said that this is that I've made false statements. And now, no one can discuss the false statements.
There's been
I think there is a right
We have a motion on the floor.
I think
This
there is
is
right
time
and
for
wrong in
discussion.
this world. I think the Lord gives us discernment. There are people in this room who are looking straight down at their feet because they're embarrassed by this whole situation. This concoction of statements is ridiculous, out of context, back and forth between different subjects. Some of the comments weren't even on the subjects that you attributed them to. Out of context stuff. You know, if the commission wants to vote, then kind of says what I thought all along. And Mr. Chairman, if no one else has anything to say, let your conscience be your guide and let's move on.
All right, in the absence of somebody seeking the floor,
Well, I'd like to just make some comments, right?
but the chair recognizes Mr. Gillespie.
I think that we've got to this point.
Speak up a little bit, please.
I recognize Alan Gillespie, and he wants to say something.
I think that we've got to this point is a travesty, right? I think the lack of professionalism from all sides, right? I do think there are certain standards out there. I don't think the commission's always met them. I think it's a growing organization, it's making improvements, right? But I think words are important, and being careful with words are important, right? You know, it's sad, right? It really is. You know, at so many levels. Hopefully we can work through the business issues. I do think this, you know, the resolution and those contained, right? Ms. Treasurer, to be frank, a lot of the comments I do find inflammatory, right? And I probably agree with much of what you're about, you know, more than many others on the commission. And I certainly don't think everything the commission's done, you know, is to my satisfaction and liking either. But I do think there are a lot of good people who work very hard, who deserve professional respect and the opportunity to work to make things better. You know, I don't know all the particulars of the resolution, but I think the general sentiment of the resolution is, you know, let's lower the rhetoric and get back to, you know, real business and, you know, blocking and tackling.
Well, Mr. Chairman, I would love to do that, but the things that you can say are false. I maintain are true. I maintain that all through those things that you say here, I maintain they're true. And if they're not truthful, then you should tell them. If I get information on a timely basis, then tell them. If we would have the CFAs and the attorneys investigate the differences in the contracts that cost us millions of dollars extra a year, well then investigate. Refuse to investigate. You call, I could be wrong. I might be wrong about that. That lighthouse contract, maybe I just read it. But it would take Mr. Harper or Mrs. Byrne about an hour, 2 hours to find out. The commission refuses to do it. So you have a fiduciary who says, there's millions of dollars going out the door. We refuse to look at it. What am I supposed to say? I'm supposed to accept it? I'm not going to accept it. I'm never going to accept it. Tell me I'm wrong, put it in a piece of paper, sign it, and then I'll accept it. But you haven't even made the basic investigations. And it's my responsibility as an elected official to get out there and tell what I believe is to be the truth. I say it because I believe it. If I had any influence in here on those types of issues, I wouldn't be out there. Now, I know that by getting out there and being public, we have bent the curve on these. You know, I spend time and go back and read these minutes long before I came on board. There were no serious conversations and follow-up about audits or internal procedures or audit committees or bending of fees. There were mentions.
Okay.
There were mentions, but are there follow-ups?
Yeah, we appointed the previous state treasurer to lead the audit committee, and they never had a meeting.
And I don't hold me responsible for him.
I don't, but don't say it as we did
Yeah,
the other
but-
day.
But
Let me
that's
remind
my
the
point.
commission
Yes, sir,
this is
Mr.
not a back and
Chairman.
forth
That is
discussion.
my point. It doesn't matter who did it. I didn't point the finger here. I just said it didn't get done. And I have been public. I have other things I'd rather do. I have been public, and we have an active audit. We have all this, you know, we listened to Bob Borden tell us in June of 2011, we have best internal and due diligence practices. Other states look to us. We've been through 2 audits, and now we have a significant report today on how far we are behind and how we're moving forward. So what I say is truthful. It's just, you don't like the way I say it. Well, I try to work inside, and when I can't get it done inside, I realize that it costs the trust money. There are lots of other questions, like I can't find out whether third-party people are paying for commission and staff travel. They won't answer that question. So what do you say? When you're a fiduciary of a plan and you ask Mr. Harper, do you have knowledge of third-party folks paying for travel for commissioners and staff? And he won't answer. Well, what would you think? It's my job to protect the trust. Now, maybe nobody else cares. But I've asked you, and you refuse to answer. And so therefore, what am I supposed to say? I tell you all, you don't do anything. I tell you about the contracts, you don't do anything. So what am I supposed to do? I am fulfilling my fiduciary responsibility. I kind of see this as a badge of honor, to be honest with you. For nothing else, and the way it was written is absolutely a travesty. There are things I'm guilty of, and I probably had time for myself too much. This ain't the document to do it. We started off the day with a lecture by the man who has total control. He sets the agenda. He sets all the issues. He won't allow my issues on here. And then it's an organized ambush, pre-printed and everything, which nobody got a copy of before. And so here we see it. So I know what this is all about. Go ahead, but I'll promise you this, I will not stop until these problems are fixed.
I'll call for a vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 All opposed? Does that mean opposed or why not?
Opposed is the grade you vote on.
The record reflect that one vote against, cast by Mr. Loftus, all other votes were in favor, cast by the other voting commission, including the chairman. Okay, we'll move to the, may I have unanimous consent? I saw